If you're not her first choice, dump her. I see too many men happy that they won a girl over after years or months. If it takes you years or months, that means you had to convince her. And if you had to convince her, you probably weren't her first option. And when you're not her first option, she doesn't have nearly as much respect for you if she chose you first. So if you can't tie down a relationship with her in a timely manner, you're probably not her first choice. You should probably move on.
Men who have dumped their girlfriends, what was the final straw? We took a month-long break. I felt better than I had in ages, and as the end of the month came up, my anxiety level was rising to stratospheric levels once again as I thought about having to talk to her again. I listened to my gut, which was screaming at me by that point, I guess. She talked with nearly all of her exes and she always had to be right. It didn't matter what we were talking about. She could say or do nothing wrong, ever. When she kicked me out of the car on the highway when I mentioned how nice a car was. As we passed it, we could barely see through the tinted windows that a younger female was driving it. I was accused of looking at her. After a huge argument about how that was an absurd accusation, she pulled off the side of the highway about 2 miles away from her home and demanded that I get out and walk. When I got to her house, I walked in, didn't say a word to her, grabbed my shit, got in my truck and pieced the fuck out. She blew up my phone for weeks after. I told her to fuck off and never spoke to her again.
In the event that you haven't been in that frame of mind previously, it's difficult to see exactly how profoundly separations can influence you. It resembles taking a hair and tearing it straight somewhere far away from me. Separations are difficult. Truth be told, this video is about a solicitation from an individual sibling who remarked that I can't continue on from my ex. Assuming you spent such countless years with that lady, you will frequently have the recollections flood back to you of the times you enjoyed with her. There may be times when you investigate your shoulder and see another couple having a ball, just to fall once more into recollecting your ex. Luckily, there are ways for you to get away from this snare of hopelessness after a separation. In this video, you're going to track down the 5 methods for tackling the manliness in you to do exactly that. Number 1, there's no way but forward. The most important phase in continuing on from a separation is to find some peace with the truth that both of you will probably never be together from this point forward. This is difficult to accept, however, it's the unrivaled truth. There should be a complete psyche shift that occurs inside you. Rather than seeing yourself as a gone through a man separation, just glance at yourself as a solitary man. You may subliminally accept that there is an opportunity for her to mystically return or to have her fascination for you once more. However, these are fancies made by your connection for her. Men who have this kind of mindset help me remember a film called Hachi, a canine story. In this film, the canine loses his owner and spends his other last long stretches of life sitting tight for him to return until he bites the dust. This is the specific untruth that you are rehashing to yourself. The initial step is to find a sense of peace with the misfortune, like a dead family member. Bury her. I don't mean you want to genuinely go cover her. Yet make a complete flip to you that acknowledges her as a distant memory. Never think back to the past levels of the relationships, since that will just make the interaction increasingly slow and difficult. Something else to remember is to keep away from contact with her until you've completely continued on. She could in any case need to be your companion or keep you in her life. Yet prior to tolerating that deal, you should go through the most common way of overlooking her totally. Number 2, supplant her with postponed delight. An exceptionally normal response to a separation for most men is to attempt to draw their pity with moment satisfaction. They burn through such a lot of valuable time backtracking through their advancement, since they come up short on mental fortitude and solidarity to manage the downturn that they're feeling. This may be the most horrendously awful error of your whole life, so pay attention to my words cautiously. One of the simplest and quickest ways of continuing on totally from her is to not supplant her with free dopamine. However, with the craft of postponed satisfaction and difficult work, there's nothing that can soothe a man more than his art, and you want to remember that for at whatever point you want to surrender. One such case could be a terrible separation. One more significant perspective to remember is that the harder you work and the additional time you commit to your motivation, the higher worth you'll become, and hence the greater ladies you'll have the option to draw in. Number 3, utilize the separation as a fuel. This point is intently attached to the past one, and for clear reasons. I referenced those men who suffocated their distresses in moment delight, but at the same time there's different sorts of men who simply suffocate straightforwardly in their wretchedness, without endeavoring to fix the issue. The distinction between the two is not really present. However, since the two of them get tortured with the tumult that results after a separation, you could have ended up going through this definite circumstance and considered how might I stop this aggravation for good. There's just a single solution: to channel this wretchedness into your activities to better yourself. As hard as this might sound, it's the main sensible and demonstrated technique. This is the manner by which it works. You separated, now you feel all miserable and discouraged. You require a couple of days to allow your feelings to stream in the event that you should. Yet, here's the main part: after those couple of long periods of allowing your feelings to stream, try not to permit yourself to remain in the mindset of bitterness. Those days you took to allow your feelings to run free weren't there to make you more discouraged, yet to assist you with grappling with the way that she's no more. In the wake of finding a sense of peace with these realities, now is the right time to involve that as fuel, and that is the reason I recommend you take the test of a separation with appreciation, because of the extraordinary potential it needs to further develop you. Assuming you begin taking it in with a feeling of expectation for a superior future, you'll rapidly quit feeling like a sorry washout and more like a real man that you are. Number 4. Embrace the change. There are two sorts of individuals in this world: the people who see misfortune as something pessimistic, and the people who consider it to be a wellspring of new open doors, as a venturing stone after a separation. You must be more similar to the last option. All successful men I've met over my life, no matter what their prosperity with continuing on from their ex, have consistently had a feeling of misfortune and felt denied of their little place of refuge. I won't deny the way that it is for sure an extremely regular response to such an occasion. However, keeping a mentality of opportunity is what you should rehearse. You should embrace an indifferent outlook. It possibly comes when an overflow attitude exists. Suppose you have a business that is producing millions in real money for you. You have a circle of brothers you can go to. You have a family that loves you and a mission you are effectively pursuing every day. Do you figure this separation will actually want to save you in a low state for extensive stretches of time? Generally, certainly not. Certainly, you might feel down for a couple of days. However, the other bountiful part of your life will push you up like a spring. In the event that your different pieces of life are coming crashing down too, no big surprise you need to clutch that lady, since she was the main beneficial thing about your life. It's obvious that most connections these days can be a colossal migraine for most men. So to accomplish the most out of the cycle I recently made sense of, you ought to remind yourself why both of you separated in any case. It was to improve things such as disposing of strings that were holding you down so you can run free. At last, number 5, never supplant her with another lady. This point means quite a bit to me on an individual level. I've witnessed this precise thing too often, and the after effects of this are more than horrendous. Out of the ones who attempt to continue on, these are the most disastrous on the grounds that they keep away from the entanglement of the separation altogether. Think about it along these lines: these men are drug addicts. To beat their habit for good, change to an alternate, less powerful drug. The outcomes are way more awful than you naturally suspect. I see such countless folks who believe that the most effective way to continue on from their ex is to supplant her straightforwardly with another lady, without actually thinking about continuing on. All they do is harm themselves significantly further alongside the forlorn lady. All the while, their destitution for ladies increases and their capacity to deal with their feelings gets worse. The disappointment of a relationship ought to be a venturing stone during the time spent figuring out how to cherish. Yet an immediate substitution is something contrary to that. Simply a handy solution endures nearly nothing and has horrible drawbacks. Never pursue that egotistical choice to be a container and remain in the way picked for you. These kinds of men go out and attempt to find a lady with the comparative body shape as their ex, or they attempt to envision that the new young lady is their ex. That is a one-way pass to wretchedness. Tap that buy-in button and hit like so that the algorithm will help you see the next most ideal ways to step up as a man.